Solway. For the past week, we've been looking at syllables and how to take a word and to break it into its constituent parts. Today, we're going to look at how these syllables are useful to poets as they construct their poetry. There are two different types of syllables used in Latin poetry. A syllable is considered to be a long syllable if one of these two conditions are met. One, if a syllable contains a long vowel in it, or diphthongs also are considered to be long. Um, there are 6 diphthongs in the Latin language. They're on your screen and in your handout. I typically every year write these 6 on the board because I forget them. If a syllable contains a long vowel sound, the whole syllable is considered to be long by nature. The second condition that could be met is if a syllable contains a short vowel sound, but the vowel sound is followed by 2 or more consonants. This is called long by position. Short syllables are everything else. Short syllables contain short vowels, and that's about it. Traditionally, for long syllables, we write a line above the entire syllable. For short syllables, we write that U symbol. There is something strange about long by position syllables. A syllable can be considered to be long by position even if those consonants that follow that short vowel, even if they're not in the same syllable, even if they're not in the same word. So I've given you an example. Puella probat. Puella probat. And we look at that very last syllable of puella, that LA has a short vowel sound, so it should be a short syllable. However, we look at the next word probat begins with 2 consonants. And so that last A in puella actually is a long syllable. If a short syllable is followed by 2 or more consonants, it's long by position. Doesn't matter where those consonants are. So what I'd like for you to do is on your worksheet, is to divide each of these words into their syllables and then evaluate each syllable for its length. Is it long by nature? Is it long by position? Or is it a short syllable? Go ahead and pause the video now and take a look at your worksheet and go ahead and do that for me. So first things first, take a look. How did you do with your syllable splitting? And now let's take a look at how you did with your evaluation. Nix might have tricked you. It might have been tricky there. Nix, that X is actually considered to be a double consonant. It looks like one, but it's actually pronounced like a KS, and so it is considered double consonant. Did I get you? All right. How did you do? Does your sheet look like this? The next thing you need to know is something called elision. When we speak, words tend to merge together. So I'll give you an example here, right? The words don't you want to will most likely pronounce this as don't you wanna. Don't you wanna? Well, what happened to all those words? Well, they elided together. When sounds merge like this, it's called elision. And this is actually a really powerful tool that poets use to their advantage. And Catullus uses it a lot. Words will elide if the first word ends with a vowel or it ends with a nasal sound. So in Latin, the sounds am, um, and em really should be pronounced more like ang, and m. They're not like we do in English. Don't say it like that. It makes you sound silly. And the next word begins with a vowel sound or an H. Romans didn't consider H to be a real letter. It was just a breath. Those sounds will elide together. The end of the first word drops out and the beginning of the first word takes over. I'll give you an example. So this comes from Catullus. I believe it's Catullus poem number 5, and I don't think we're getting to it this year. And the line is vivamus mea lesbia atque amamus. Let us live, my lesbia, and let us love. Let's look for words that could elide together. We're looking for words that end with a vowel or the M, the nasal M, and words that begin with a vowel or an H. Three words that can elide together. Lesbia and atque can elide together. Atque and amamus meet the requirements for elision. So what's that going to sound like? So it's going to sound something like this. Vivamus mea lesbiatquamamus. Vivamus mea lesbiatquamamus. So now that we know a little bit more about syllables and evaluating their lengths, how are we going to use this in our poetry? You might recall from last week that English poetry uses very specific patterns of stressed and unstressed syllables. But in Latin, we don't really care about the stresses so much. We care about patterns of long and short syllables. And we put these patterns together, and it makes a poetic meter. Here are some pretty typical feet that you might encounter. These are patterns of longs and shorts that put together make regular feet. I don't know why they're called feet. We can take these feet, mix them around in regular ways, and come up with a line. And let's take a look at an example right now. So the first example I'd like to show you, probably the most common type of poetic line in Greek and Roman poetry, and it's called the dactylic hexameter. Dactylic because it has a bunch of these dactyls in it, and hexameter because there are 6 feet in a line, right? And so the way this works, it has a bunch of dactyls. Dactylic hexameter is kind of weird because at the very last line there is a spondee, but it's bum 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 bum. There are variations to this, but this is the basic dactylic hexameter. We have these regular patterns of longs and shorts, and it makes a very nice rhythm. I'll give you another example. This is the one that we will be using for the foreseeable future. It's called hendecasyllabic. Hendeca it comes from the Greek word for 11, and so it has 11 syllables broken into 5 feet. The very first foot has some variations. It can be a spondee, it can be a trochee, or it can be an iamb. The second foot must be a dactyl. The next 2 feet must be trochees, and then the last foot. And then you see the X there? The X means it's a free syllable. It's called an ANCAPS, and it just means that it can be whatever it wants to be. On the IB test, they want you to put that X there. It will either be long or short, but it doesn't matter, and so we're just going to put an X there. Let's use a spondee for the first one. It's going to sound bum 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 bum. That's a pretty good rhythm. So let's try it. So this is a line of Catullus, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this step by step and break it into its syllables, evaluate these syllables for length, put them into that meter. Make sure that the meter fits in our hendecasyllabic. Step 1, very first thing to do is to break this line into syllables. Remember, this is hendecasyllabic, so there ought to be 11 syllables. So give that a shot. I'll meet you on the other side. Welcome back. Does yours look like this? Step 2 is to check for elisions. Why don't you pause it and then check for elisions and come back when you're ready. You find any? There are no elisions in here. Step number 3 is to go and assign syllable length to this. We're looking for long by nature, long by position, and short syllables. Pause the video, and I'll see you on the other side. All right. Does yours look like this? As you can see, most of these are long by position, and that's quite a common occurrence. Step 4, break it into its metrical feet. Basically, we've already done this, but take a moment and look at this, and break those into feet, right? Put the lines down and separate these feet out. All right, welcome back. Does yours look like this? Notice that feet can end inside of a word. That's okay. Hi, excuse the interruption. This is future editing me here. I realized as I was going through this that I never actually spoke the line after we went through the trouble of scanning it and assessing these syllables and putting it into a meter, which is the whole point of doing all of this. Is to hear that rhythm, is to actually have a bit of poetry that sounds good. So let's do that now. It should sound like this. No bis cum semel cadit brevis lux. Back to past me. That's how we do it. We do it in those steps. Step one, break the words into their syllables. Step two is to check for elisions. Step three is to assign the syllable length, long by nature, long by position, or short. Step four is to break them into their metrical feet, and that's it. That's it. 4 steps to scan Latin poetry. Let me know if you have any questions. Wale.